Mr. Martinez in the District Attorney's Office, and I just want to say a few words about Ms. Romo, Barbara Romo. In the 1990s, through that decade, I was the elected DA in Socorro, and we had 4 counties: Socorro, Torrance, which is Estancia, Sierra, which was Tier C, and Catron, which was reserved in that area. Well, one day I had an opening in Tier C. So I got these applicants, and I started looking at them. And one of the applicants was Barbara Romo. And one of the things that I noticed about it is, number one, that she was a veteran. She had been in the military. She started out. She had retired, left the military as a captain. That made it kind of interesting to me because being a woman and having to go up the ranks of an army, that must have taken a heck of a challenge. But she retired as a captain. Also, I noticed that her husband was a retired Army veteran. And not only just an ordinary Army retired veteran, but a 2-time recipient of the Silver Star. Now, anybody who knows about military, the only way you get the Silver Star is, number one, in combat, and it is right below the Congressional Medal of Honor. So I saw that she came, and of course she had 2 kids, from an Army background, a military background, and she was a veteran. Second thing is, I looked at her resume, and I said, here she graduated from college with distinction, with honors. She had a master's degree in administration, and she graduated from law school with honors. I started to wonder why she was applying there, So, when she came into the office, we had a meeting, and I offered her the position in Tier C. Now, she got in there, she took over the office, but not only did she help with the prosecution, she got involved in the community. Because one of the things that we look for district attorneys, my dealing, and what I did as a district attorney when I was down there, is that you have to get to know the community. You have to get to know the people. You are the representative of those people. And so she got involved in the community. She started doing trials, and lo and behold, she was honored by the New Mexico District Attorneys Association as the Rookie Prosecutor of the Year. Well, in 1997, unfortunately, the 7th of my district, the Albuquerque Journal did a thing about the top 10 criminal cases in New Mexico. Guess what? We had 5 of them. We had the top 3, we had number 5 and number 7. The Elephant Butte trial, the David Parker, the Torreon cabin murders, the decapitation in Moriarty where the father decapitated his son's head off. Well, coming from a small district, I needed help. So I asked Ms. Romo to join me and to assist me. And I have to say with much pride, with her help. Now, she had to appear at many of the hearings when I couldn't make it. We were going against some of the best criminal defense attorneys in New Mexico. Gary Mitchell, Ray Tuhig, Paul Kennedy, Mark Donatelli, all these people that you may not know, but they are top criminal defense lawyers in New Mexico that are going to put you through the ringer. Well, I'm proud to say that Ms. Romo and I were successful in prosecuting those cases. Well, after her tenure in Socorro, I came to Valencia County with Mr. Martinez. Ms. Romo went to Santa Fe, and she took over the sexual assault unit. Well, it wasn't much of a unit, it was her. Now, please understand, when you're doing prosecutions, the hardest area to get into is sexual assaults. And I'll tell you why, because it takes a toll on you. You're dealing with child molestation cases, rape cases, etc. Well, not only did she do so well in Santa Fe, she became one of the leading experts in the state of New Mexico in that area. District attorneys across the state were calling her for her expertise. And lo and behold, she started to become well known in the state of New Mexico, as well as doing so well in Santa Fe. She did that for a while, and I know that it takes a toll. It takes a toll on you, because you're dealing with the issues that you're dealing with. You're going to have more trials in that area than you have anywhere else, because people are going to fight it a lot harder. There's I mean, when you have to register as a sex offender for the rest of your life, people are going to have to go fight you tooth and nail. So after those years, but what was happening is that she was being asked to speak and train other prosecutors across the state of New Mexico on how to do those kind of cases. Plus, the legislature, our senators, our congressmen, there in Santa Fe, were asking her to come in and testify to those issues. So how do we change the law? How do we make it harder? What do we do with penalties, etc.? They were calling her. Well, one day I was sitting there here in Valencia County, and I was reading something, and I noticed that Barbara now was being recognized nationally. Suddenly she was going to Portland, Oregon to speak about sexual assaults. She was being asked to go here because she had now become not only a statewide known, but nationally known. So she gave her life, her career at that point was to help those kind of victims. Well, she also was in the legislature trying to change the law. Well, like I said, it takes a toll on somebody. No question about it. And I can tell you out of 38 years that I've practiced in this profession, I can name probably 5 people that have made that a career. Most of the time, those attorneys will only stay a couple of years in that area because it is tough. Well, Barbara gave over a decade, I think, of her time to those people and those victims. Now, you may hear in this campaign that other candidates saying, I care for victims. Well, I hope so, because that's what we do. But my dad told me, I grew up in Socorro. My grandfather had a ranch there in San Antonio. And one of the things my dad told me, he says, don't tell me that you want to do something, show me. So if you care for victims, we're supposed to care for victims. Barbara left the Santa Fe office after, I think, kind of getting burnt out and everything, but she went to the Victim Rights Project. It was a project in Albuquerque funded by MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, and other coalitions to just to help victims. I have to say that I think if you've been a victim before, or you know somebody that's been a victim, this lady right here changed the law. She litigated and went to the Supreme Court to make sure that victims had the right to be in court, to have a voice in the court, and could not be excluded from the court. Before, as I would assume Judge Perea would know, victims were taken out, they were purposely put away because they didn't want them to see them. She went to the Supreme Court to change that thing. So that was the first time that it became where victims actually had a voice in the courtroom. And as I said, it reminded me of what my father said, just don't tell me about it, show me. Actions speak louder than words. And I think that she dedicated herself to victims. And again, she started being asked by the legislature. She was asked to be trained. I used to call her on numerous occasions, hey, what the heck do I do here? After all these years, you still need help. She was the resource. And she was being called from every district attorney's office in the state of New Mexico. So, well, there was an opening in Sandoval County. And we had been going through some problems in Sandoval County. We had gone through various people in the office. And I think I refer this to Judge Perea because I know because I appeared before Judge Perea. I think you like continuity. You like stability in the DA's office. It makes the job a lot easier. Well, we were going through some turmoil. I asked Barbara, hey, look, excellent trial lawyer. I said, don't you miss the courtroom? She goes, well, yeah. Well, get over there. So she started in Sandoval, just as a attorney. She moved herself up, and we asked her to take over as deputy. Now, as deputy, you're responsible for not only the cases that are come in, but the personnel that you have to deal with. Now, anybody who's handled personnel, that's a different animal. And so, and I tell you, within a couple of years, I'm going to say this, I know Barb's going to get upset with me, but anyway, I'm going to say it became the second best office in the 13th. You know why? Because Valencia was the first. anyway, she turned it around, and all of a sudden the issues we had been dealing with previously were no longer an issue. Sandoval County had 23 or 25 employees. So now you're in charge of 25 employees. Plus, as you know, Rio Rancho started booming. I remember growing up here in Socorro, in Socorro, and they told me, hey, there's a party in Rio Rancho. I didn't even know where in the heck Rio Rancho was. I mean, I knew where Corrales was. I knew where Placitas was. Bernalillo. Where in the heck is Rio Rancho? I go out there and, I'm sitting in the backyard drinking a beer and I'm looking at all the sand and all the weeds. And I said, who in the holy moly would build a house out here? Well, I should have bought property. But anyway, that's my mistake. But it became, in this time period that Barb took over, it became the #1 county in the state in growth. Who was number 2? Valencia. But Rio Rancho was springing up like crazy. So now her caseload in that office went from 1,700 to 3,000 of how many cases were having to be screened. Now that's much different when, even in Socorro where you only had 700, or maybe in Cibola where you have 700, 800, now you're dealing with 3,000 cases that are coming in. Now you're dealing with also a police force from Rio Rancho that maybe had been 3 or 4 officers to suddenly it became this huge office, numerous law enforcement. So she took that over. But one of the interesting things that also Barb did is she started getting involved in the community. She started organizing the police department, working with them, working with probation, working with different organizations. Because you can't do it by yourself. You need help. And where do you go? Is to the resources that they have. So all of a sudden, I would go, it was almost like when she was in Tier C, when I was back then. I'd go into Tier C and they knew her more than they knew me. Well, we started going to Sandoval, and guess what? They knew her more than they knew anybody else. I mean, it was just the way it is. She's there. But she not only just dealt with prosecution, she started getting involved with veterans, of course, her being a veteran, dealing with issues that veterans have when they come back. They have problems, and we have to address them. They've dedicated their lives to the protection of our country. We owe them some consideration of how they come back. She started dealing with other community projects, breast cancer, and all these other things that she got so involved in. Well, the last trial I did here, I don't know if you remember, it was the police officer who was killed in Rio Rancho by this guy from Albuquerque, gang member from Albuquerque. And, we had about maybe over 100 witnesses at the time. We had about 1,000 or 2,000 pages of documents. So Barb calls me up and says, hey, Ron, I know you're kind of coming down to the end, and, will you help me? Well, I said, sure. I mean, she had always been there for me when I needed help on trials or resources or research. And we went ahead and prosecuted here in Valencia County. Well, the thing is this. After that trial, I felt such pride because I had seen this young woman start off as a rookie prosecutor. And suddenly, she was telling me what to do. I felt at home. No, but I saw just how well she had just come from. And it just made me so proud that this was some way accomplished at that point. A couple of years ago, she was awarded by the state of New Mexico, the district attorneys all across the state, Prosecutor of the Year. Now, I am a recipient of that also, and I know what goes involved. There are 2 levels of that award, and you're going to probably hear it in the campaign. One is the district prosecutor, and that is determined by only one person, the DA. So whatever he wants, he appoints. Being state prosecutor of the year, you got 14 district attorneys. They have a committee, they meet, They get input from all these judges, police agencies, all these things to determine who the person should be. It is a tremendous honor because we have over, I don't know, 300, 400 prosecutors in the state of New Mexico. And to be honored in that way, and they called me because I have been a former recipient and asked me, without question, she deserved it. So she was awarded the State Prosecutor of the Year. I think a couple of years ago, she was also named, because of her community work, she was named Community State Prosecutor of the Year. Now that takes a lot, because not only do you do your job, it's the commitment you do for the community, of listening to people, of having parents come in. She has two adult children now, but growing up, all of us who have had kids, let me tell you, us being kids, we made mistakes. And boy, you look back, I look back, but for the grace of God, that maybe the laws, if I have to go through the laws now, I don't know where I'd be. Because I was the youngest of three, and I was a pain in the butt. Okay? So my dad was a teacher, and so that's another. But in any event, to be involved in the community, you have to listen to the people. Also, what makes a great prosecutor, and I want you to know this, a lot of people don't know this. They think that all we are supposed to do is put people in prison. Well, sorry, people. I did a trial in Santa Fe when I worked in Albuquerque in front of Federal District Judge Campos. And after the trial, he called me in. He had got to know me. He knew my relative, just know him. And he told me I was going to run for district attorney in Socorro. And I was a defense lawyer at that time. And he told me, he says, Mr. Lopez, there's a couple of things I want to tell you. He says, one of them is that the prosecution has tremendous amount of power. Power to affect people's lives. I mean, you can really affect a person's life. The second thing is, remember, everybody makes mistakes. He asked me, have you made mistakes? Oh, yeah. He said, I've made mistakes. So when you consider cases, you have to take that into consideration. Now, one of our ethical obligations as prosecutors is not only to represent the victims. We are responsible to ensure that the defendant gets a fair trial and that the defendant, his personal life is taken into consideration and that each case is different. Well, we started looking at trying to help those people that make mistakes. I mean, I know it's easy to say, let's put everybody in jail. Politically, boy, that's the easiest thing to do. I mean, Josh is here. I mean, he's a defense lawyer. I mean, if he heard that, he'd start to wonder. You want to make sure that you have somebody who not only understands because they have had children, and they have had children that go through the process and probably made mistakes. And as a parent, you know how that feels. And you would hope that somebody that is there to make that decision will take that into consideration. Also, you have to make sure that you recognize that there are bad people, unfortunately. We are humans. And that percentage of people, there are some really bad people out there. And unfortunately, I know Josh has probably represented some of them. I did when I was in Albuquerque. And I guarantee you, I would go home and tell my wife and my kid, you see this guy? Get the hell away from him. There are certain people that you have to do. So you have to balance, and you have to recognize those things. So I think that I said, also, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say, I have never met anybody as honest, as trustworthy. I believe that she has never been disciplined by the Bar Association. She has never been reprimanded by a judge. It's very important to know that because it is important to do it. And also, there is one thing that you have to look at. As I said, prosecutors have a lot of power. When we start worrying about our own ego, and we want to say, you know what, I've never lost a case ever. Well, they are BSing you. If they've been trial lawyers, We lost. Second, but did we do it the right way? If we prosecuted somebody, did we do it the right way? The defendant has a fair trial. But when you start seeing things from prosecutors, I dealt with them as deputy and as chief deputy and as DA, and I would recognize once I started seeing that coming in, we had problems. Because it's easy if you think that it's all about you. What happens? You start cutting corners. You start not giving the defense what they deserve, or what is obligated for them to have, because you're so worried about you want to come out this way. I always took pride. Clearly, all of us are oriented to win and to do what we think is right. But I always felt that if I did and somebody paid the penalty, that we did it fairly. And they could honestly say, from the defense end, they may say Ron's an SOB sometimes, but the thing is, we do it fairly. Ms. Romo has exemplified that thing. Never been reprimanded by a judge, never been said prosecutorial misconduct for hiding evidence, nothing. So this is probably one of the most trustworthy persons I've ever met in my life, and most dedicated, and the hardest person I've had to deal with a trial, telling me what to do. But she wanted perfection, and that's what you want. You want somebody that's going to dedicate themselves at that point. Like I said, they've asked me, Christian asked me, I've known her since she first started, and I continue to know her. I have no qualms, no hesitations, nothing to recommend her as our next district attorney. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Barbara Romo.